O come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. In his account of the gospel, Luke tells us that at the time of the presentation of Jesus in the temple, there was an upright and devout man called Simeon who lived in Jerusalem. He prophesied about the newborn child in his Nunc Dimittis. He said, "At last, all-powerful Master, you give leave to your servants to go in peace according to your promise. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for all nations, a light to enlighten the Gentiles, and to give glory to Israel, your people." After this, Simeon blessed them and said to Mary his mother, "This child is destined for the fall and for the rise of many in Israel." The word gospel is from the Greek evangelion, which means good news. But from the prophecy of Simeon, we can say that even though the Word made flesh is good news in himself, even though Jesus Christ is good news personified, he can also be bad news depending on where he lands. This is like the relationship between the heat from the sun and the object that it meets. The same heat from the sun that melts the ice comes in touch with the mud and it hardens the mud. The same heat from the fire that softens the carrot hardens the egg. The heat is the same. The sun is the same. It depends on the recipient. Similarly, the gospel is good news, but it depends on the ears that hear it and the heart that receives it. Today is the feast of Epiphany. You can call it the Christmas of the Gentiles. It is a celebration of the manifestation of the newborn King to the Gentile world, or the non-Jewish world, as represented by the Magi. Simeon said at the presentation of Jesus that Jesus will be a light of revelation to the Gentiles. Today, the light of Christ shines through the star and leads the Magi to Christ, who is the light. When they found the baby, they were filled with joy. They abandoned their former religion, where they worshipped the stars, and they paid homage to the Creator of the stars. In their joy and happiness, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They brought gold to crown the King of Kings. They brought frankincense to acknowledge his divinity and to be used for his priestly functions. And they brought myrrh to acknowledge his humanity, which is destined for death and burial, after which he will be glorified in his resurrection and ascension. The news and the sight of the baby brought great joy to them, just like the angels sang at his birth. "Joy to the world, for the Lord has come." The angels also sang, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to people of good will." Note that it is not peace to all people. It is peace to people of good will. The same good news, but it depends on the heart that receives it. The same news that brings peace will disturb others. It was the same news the Magi heard and saw, and they were joyful. But when Herod heard the news, today's gospel passage tells us that he was greatly troubled. Not just troubled, but greatly troubled. The good news was a threat to his comfort zone, a threat to his authority and security, and a threat to his sense of self-importance. He was not ready to let go in order to let God, and so he faced his own doom. This does not in any way imply that Jesus came to condemn sinners. He actually came to save sinners, and he came that all may have life and have it in full. Yet, he does not interfere with the exercise of our free will. He came as the light of the world to reveal the secret thoughts and motives of all. He is a true star, the light that will unmask and reveal everything. He will not be interested in political correctness. He will call things by their names. He will call a spade a spade. Before him, there will be no sitting on the fence. Everybody will have to make a decision, either to be for him or against him, and the choice will be yours to make. The nearer we are to Christ, the more we become aware of our sinfulness. And the result is either we become repentant and ask for his mercy and find peace in his pardon, or we fight against it and we suffer. When Peter denied Christ, he did not know what he was doing. But when the light of Christ came on him, he realized his sin. He wept in confession, and he regained peace. Judas Iscariot also sinned by betraying Christ. When the light of Christ came on him, he rejected that moment of grace, and he took his own life. It is the same light of Christ, but different responses depending on the recipient. Their encounter with the Holy Family changed the astrologers, the Magi. They came as worshippers of the star, but they left as worshippers of the Creator of the stars. They came through one route, but when they went back through another route, no one encounters Christ and remains the same. They were led by the star, but when they met the Creator of the stars, they were enlightened themselves to become stars to lead others to Christ. That is the challenge posed before us as Christians. We are called to be evangelized evangelizers. We are called to be light to the world. Each one of us is now the star that must lead others to Christ. We are called to do this in our encounters with our colleagues in our places of work, in our schools as students, on our playgrounds, in the marketplaces, on the streets, and in our homes. Mahatma Gandhi is a well-known name. Referring to his death, a Nobel Prize nominee and legendary missionary said, "It is the greatest tragedy since the Son of God died on the cross." Mahatma Gandhi was not a Christian. He was Hindu. When he encountered Christ through the Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel according to Matthew, he fell in love with Christ, but not with Christianity. After his experience of apartheid, racism, and different forms of discrimination perpetrated by so-called Christians in South Africa, he said, "I like your Christ. I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christs." That was how Christianity lost Gandhi and his followers. That is how many Christians are responsible for many who reject Christianity, because such people are unable to see Christ who has been obscured by Christianity, because such Christians profess Christ by their lips, but by their lives they betray Christ. A few years ago, a friend of mine complained bitterly on how her brother does not believe in God. After my first encounter with my friend's brother, I came back to her and I said, I don't think your brother does not believe in God. I only think that it is the image of God that has been presented to him from his childhood that he does not believe in. We must be careful with the image of God we present to people. It is very easy for us to cage God and to make him after our own image and likeness. If today I notice that more young people are losing interest in becoming priests, I must question myself to see the kind of priesthood I show to them. If we complain that our children and grandchildren have stopped practicing Christianity, if we complain that many hate Catholicism, we must examine ourselves to see if there is something we must start doing differently so as not to be stumbling blocks to those who seek Christ. And remember, you may be the only Bible that someone may read in the whole of his or her life.